Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer and unpack exactly how Amkor Technology is fueling the current AI and semiconductor boom. Because, quite frankly, their latest financial results for Q2 2026, they are absolutely staggering. We're going to break down how they're pulling this off and, more importantly, what this means for the entire tech ecosystem going forward.
We're going to start right off the bat with a total mic drop number, $1.9 billion. That represents Amkor's record-breaking net sales for the second quarter. To put that into perspective, it's a massive 26% jump year over year. In a hardware industry that's notorious for these boom and bust cyclical slowdowns, seeing this level of accelerated growth at this massive scale, that's a huge neon indicator that fundamental demand is shifting, especially around high-performance computing.
Now, what's really fascinating here is visualizing the actual climb. You can clearly see this steady, aggressive, quarter-over-quarter growth pushing them right up to this milestone. We aren't just looking at a random spike here. We are literally watching a structural ramp-up happen in real time. They went from $1.51 billion in Q2 of 2025, stepped it up to $1.68 billion in Q1 of 2026, and then just powered right through to $1.9 billion this latest quarter. Operating income actually doubled year over year, going from $92 million to $200 million. It is a textbook illustration of operational leverage.
And this incredible momentum, it isn't just isolated to one lucky quarter. It actually reflects a 26% revenue increase for the entire first half of 2026. But here's the most vital takeaway. This was driven by growth across literally every single one of their end markets. Plus, they've seen solid utilization improvements across their whole manufacturing network. When every single one of your end markets is firing at once, well, that's exactly when you see this kind of outsized financial performance.
So to understand the why behind these massive numbers, we can turn to CEO Kevin Engel. He points directly to expanding their strategic ecosystem partnerships, alongside the surging, almost insatiable demand for AI and high-performance computing. He noted that their actions during the first half of the year were specifically designed to strengthen their competitive position and boost earnings power. It's a very deliberate focus on aligning themselves with the absolute cutting edge of the tech sector.
Basically, Amkor is executing on three foundational strategic pillars to capitalize on this global semiconductor bottleneck. We're talking about elevating technology leadership, expanding their geographic footprint, and enhancing strategic partnerships. Let's look at these one by one. First up is technology leadership. Amkor is actively pouring investments into advanced platforms, and they're successfully ramping up their high-density fan-out data center CPU programs to meet cutting-edge demands. By growing these leading-edge customer engagements, they aren't just sitting on the sidelines. They are actively enabling the next generation of computing architecture. Let's move to the second pillar and see how this builds a resilient supply chain. Amkor is aggressively expanding their physical footprint all over the globe. Phase 1 of their highly anticipated Arizona facility is progressing nicely. On top of that, they have multiple facility expansions underway in Korea, alongside incremental cleanroom and equipment expansions across Vietnam, Portugal, and Taiwan. In a world where geopolitical supply chain resilience is literally top of mind for every tech CEO, having this globally distributed footprint is a massive competitive advantage.
And this brilliantly illustrates their third pillar, locking in these massive, multi-year strategic agreements with undisputed industry giants. Think about this. They've secured a 10-year advanced packaging agreement with TSMC, the world's leading foundry. And alongside that, they've established a multi-year strategic partnership with NVIDIA. When you are the chosen packaging partner for the companies literally building the AI revolution, your growth trajectory is effectively locked in alongside theirs.
Now, when we break down what they're actually selling, the contrast is just stark. Advanced Products brought in over $1.5 billion, completely dwarfing their mainstream wire bond packaging products, which sat at about $341 million. Advanced Products now make up the vast majority of their revenue, covering the whole shebang: flip chip, memory, and wafer-level processing.
This tells us exactly where Amkor's center of gravity lies right now. Advanced packaging is the true engine of growth, powering these record-breaking financials. As chips get smaller and, frankly, much harder to manufacture, the entire industry is relying more and more on advanced packaging to stitch together multiple chiplets into a single, high-performance package. Amkor has positioned itself absolutely perfectly to catch this wave.
Let's look at exactly who is buying these chips. Communications remains the biggest slice of the pie at 42%. But computing and automotive and industrial, they are right behind, tied at 22% each, which represents a huge chunk of the business. Finally, consumer electronics makes up the remaining 14%.
Let's unpack these segments a bit further to see where the specific growth is really coming from.
So, within that massive communications sector, Amkor saw revenue go up 6% sequentially. They experienced double-digit growth in the iOS ecosystem, which is fantastic news for them. However, it's worth noting that the Android side of the market faced some memory supply chain constraints, which kind of kept that segment from growing even faster. Still, smartphones and tablets clearly remain a dominant force for their packaging volume.
But the computing and automotive sectors, they are the real stars of the show here, each hitting their own record quarterly revenues. Computing is being fueled by an intense, insatiable demand for data centers, infrastructure, and storage, just to support all these new AI workloads. Meanwhile, automotive and industrial saw a massive 17% sequential jump. That's driven heavily by the demand for advanced driver assistance systems, or ADAS, as cars become increasingly computerized.
Even the smaller consumer segment, which covers connected home devices, wearables, and AR gaming, is showing some really strong signs of life. They saw a very healthy 15% sequential increase in Q2. So across the board, from massive server racks all the way down to the smartwatch on your wrist, Amkor is seeing elevated demand for their services.
Looking ahead to Q3, Amkor provides a very confident blueprint. They are guiding for up to $2.05 billion in net sales. Even more impressively, they're projecting a solid bump in gross margins, targeting between 18.5% and 19.5%. When a company can grow revenue while simultaneously expanding their profit margins, it shows incredible pricing power and serious operational efficiency.
But the number that really shows their commitment to the future is their planned capital expenditure. They are dedicating up to $3 billion for the full year of 2026. $3 billion! This isn't just maintaining the status quo. This is an aggressive reinvestment into the business. They are building out the physical capacity required to handle the massive volume of those decade-long agreements we talked about. Which brings us to our final thought. With billions being poured into new global facilities, incredible margin expansion, and decade-long partnerships locked in with the architects of the AI boom, we have to ask, is this just a temporary cyclical spike, or are we witnessing a permanent supercycle in advanced packaging? Based on Amkor's Q2 results, it certainly looks like the latter. The hardware landscape is fundamentally shifting, and advanced packaging is at the very heart of it. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped unpack the mechanics behind Amkor's phenomenal quarter.